to another edition of Gas. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik.
You were playing everybody and we're winning the game last night.
The head coach is fighting people on the sideline.
What do you got for me?
I know you're a part of Tight Pants Society.
No f***ing play is that a gimme, right?
Welcome into edition 43 of Gas. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik. Gas Morning Drive. We got you for the next hour or so, breaking down everything Patriots, NFL related. Maybe we'll get into a little bit of Red Sox as that other straggler sports season is still going on now that the king is back, baby, the NFL. But world traveler Jason Anik. Now, I know that are you going to be in Vegas again this weekend for the big fight? Will you be handing note cards to your brother as a part of a different production not connected to the UFC? Well, connected to the UFC, but not the UFC.
Yes, remains to be seen whether or not I'll be handing him the cue cards and be that close. You know, I don't know if my UFC credential is going to work, but either way, I'll be in the building. You can be sure. I can't wait. We got the Professional Grappling Federation World Playoff on Wednesday the 10th. So I'm flying out to Vegas tonight. That's an 8-man playoff finale. I'm excited for that. That's Wednesday. And then it'll be boxing sort of throughout the weekend.
Yeah, and this is it's clearly new for your brother. It's new for UFC. This is, I don't want to say it's like UFC promoting boxing, but when Dana White's involved, that's what a lot of people jump to. This is more TKO being involved in boxing. And I don't know if you saw it today, Jay, but I saw it this morning where they had both fighters, and then there's Turki Ali Sheik, and then there's Dana White standing outside the fountains of the Bellagio doing like some, I guess, I don't think there were any weigh-ins or anything. It's too early for that. But they were doing some promotional work out in front of the fountains.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's going to be an enormous fight. Max Kellerman and Andre Ward joined my brother in the booth. Max Kellerman has talked about this being a generational fight, the biggest fight of our lifetime. It's on Netflix. You know, my wife's dad, who used to box out in California, he's over 80 years old, but he's not buying these UFC pay-per-views, but he loves boxing. And interestingly enough, can tune in on Netflix, watch Canelo-Crawford and hear sort of my voice, dare I say, to a certain extent, right? You know, he hasn't really heard my brother call a lot of fights. So it's a very unique opportunity for a lot of random people in different parts of our circle, you know?
Oh, no question. And look, I'm not anti-boxing. I just wish I felt the enormity of this fight. I wish there was maybe a little bit of a build-up for each guy where, okay, give me a little sample of it for the uninitiated, right? I would consider us the initiated, right? But give people a tune-up fight so they can realize on Netflix, so they realize how good Canelo and Crawford really are. And then it sort of wets the whistle for the fight. If you're not in the fight game, or if you've only heard that, 8 years ago, Canelo was supposed to fight Triple G a bunch of times, you might not exactly be hip. You might know more John Jones than you would Canelo Alvarez.
Fair. What I will say is I'm an MMA fan, and my brother has been immersed in that world for many years. But you can be sure, forget dirty boxing. That's a little bit, that of part of my world. But right. I've been watching some film for John. We've been ingesting some boxing and watching Canelo Alvarez on tape. Gosh, that's enjoyable, I will say, right? So, and I will say both these guys to a certain extent, not completely removed from their prime. So I think it's going to be enormous. And Callum Walsh is in the co-main event. I'm excited to see him fight, worked with him on UFC Fight Pass. He's sort of the guy that Dana White has sort of been behind in this sort of new boxing initiative. So I'm excited for it. Are there going to be 70,000 people at Allegiant in Vegas? That should be insane.
No, it should be. And I'm sure that I would assume the Latino crowd is going to show up in big ways, considering how big this fight is for Canelo on that end. Those guys are getting a pretty nice payday. I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will put on quite a show. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know where the Raiders are this week. I'm assuming if they were on the road that they're home this week. So I'm sure the house might be full of, Max Crosby and people like that. And I know the Noche UFC is this weekend. Now that was, I do believe that was supposed to be originally in either like Guadalajara or Mexico City or something like that. But basically the building was being worked on and it wasn't going to get done in time. So they had to move UFC Noche to San Antonio, I do believe.
Correct. And it was going to be a pay-per-view. It is now not. So John was actually going to miss an opportunity to do a pay-per-view. So that would have been interesting. But had it been south of the border, I don't think Joe Rogan would have been there. Anyway, but I will say, right, this fight is pretty close on paper, right? As we look at Noche and what a big fight that is. Gosh, I mean, that's interesting to me. But fight's pretty close on paper. I think Bud Crawford maybe come back plus 155, plus 160. Canelo maybe minus 180. I don't have it in front of me. That's appetizing for me. Just, you know, in terms of pretty close on paper, right? So I think it could go a lot of different ways. Tend to think the fight maybe does go to the distance. A lot of the action sort of tends to be leaning that way.
I think it will, but I'm all over Alvarez. I mean, come on. We have been hearing for 15 years is this guy's great. This guy's great. He's not that old. That's the crazy thing, right? When I made that Triple G joke, that was when Canelo was in his, I think, young 20s. And I think
Bud's older than him, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. Yeah, I think by a year or two at least. I'm all over Alvarez in this one.
Well, you can be sure I won't be betting on it. But what I will say, Gresh, I'm so glad you got me in a good mood talking boxing out of the gate and not the New England Patriots, right? And for those of you that tuned in for New England sports or football, we'll get there. But I'm glad you went boxing out of the gate. And I will say, what I was going to tell you in terms of football is as I get older, and I'm 47, I talk about how old I am all the time. I am an NFL fan first and maybe a Patriots fan second. And when I remember John Anik, my brother, started to get into sports broadcasting many, many years ago, I think I've said this on this show before. I was so mad that he wasn't like a Boston sports fan like me anymore. He was more neutral across the board. And what I will say, doing shows like this, I'm sure you have experience for days, obviously, rooting for stories, etc. But for me, I'm an NFL fan first. I root for the Patriots, you can be sure, but I got a lot of juice for the NFL, even though the Patriots disappointed me greatly.
Well, I think there's the gambling end of it. There's the just loving football end of it. And then there is the fan interest end of it. And a lot of people are inverted. They start with their team, then it's NFL, then it's other stuff.
Exactly.
Well, let's get to the Patriots. And boy, I couldn't have been more wrong. And this was one of the, like, I've been doing this for almost 30 years, right? And almost giving predictions weekly on football games and things like that. This was the one I feel like I really screwed the pooch. Like, I really led people wrong by not at least being a little more skeptical. I think for me, even though there wasn't a massive rushing performance, I expected more out of the Patriots defensive line that I did not get. I have not been overwhelmed at all by Drake May. There hasn't even been sort of like a special moment from the guy where it's like, wow, what a Herculean play. Everybody wants to make all the comparisons to Josh Allen. What that sumbitch did in the fourth quarter was Tom Brady-like. He just did it differently, because he is a bigger specimen of quarterback, and we're all waiting for Drake May to turn into that guy. I just don't know if it's going to happen long term. Our boy Bill Campbell had a bit of a tough day. Listen, the sacks are one thing. He's going to get his ass beat every once in a while, right? It's more of the don't be jumping off sides. You can't be making mental mistakes at this level and kind of jumping the gun. I was just overall disappointed because I had very, very high hopes that Vrabel and crew weren't going to screw the pooch, and it was closer to last year than it was to what we thought it would be this year. Sadly.
You know, and I think you used a good word, skeptical, right? I think I agree with your assessment of your analysis. Maybe you could have been a little more skeptical, but the first thing in my notes is you were right. And I know it's a small sample size, right? But I hate to say it, but everything that you said about Drake May and what things that you've been worried about from a leadership standpoint, I saw. And I know a little bit later, not quite yet, Cody, but we'll get to talking about some of the other quarterbacks drafted last year as well. But some of what you've been talking about from a leadership standpoint, I saw manifest itself, right? Moment appeared to be too big for him. He looked to be shake May. I was calling him all day, right? Looked shaky. And, a lot of these throws just sailing. Yeah, he looked really good at times. So will the other 31 quarterbacks ever go. I could show you some great throws Joe Flacco made on Sunday, right? So for me, Drake May was certainly more bad than good. And Cody, I sent you, there was a tweet from Brian Barrett, who has a podcast on The Ringer. His handle is @It's Brian Barrett. Drake May, via Pro Football Focus, PFF, when pressured, 8-16, 50%, 99 yards with the pick, 43.5 passer rating, clean pocket, 22-30, 188 yards and a touchdown. Certainly looked good in moments, but gosh, man, I was super disappointed, and I am not confident. I am not nearly as confident in Drake May today as I was 3 days ago, bro.
Here's what's really interesting is that Pro Football Focus had that, and there's another dude that I follow. He's in the Fantasy Football Today newsletter. His name is Jacob Gibbs, and he had highest week one pressure rates versus quarterbacks and things like that. But he had something called the quick pressure breakdown. Okay, and this is pressure occurring in 2.5 seconds or less. So really, it's like a blitz that gets through, or an O-lineman gets beat right away, and the quick pressure is there. Apparently, Drake May dealt with 13 of those, of the quick pressures, in terms of getting there in 2.5 seconds or less, which is, I know that after on Monday, Vrabel was asked about, is there too much on Drake May's plate? And he said, that is something that we have to, we got to break down and analyze. I think the bigger thing for Drake May is I don't, even in good plays, I don't love his pocket presence. And maybe, Jay, we're spoiled. Maybe we're spoiled because we had one of, even though people disagree with me all the time because they misunderstand the definition of mobile. Tom Brady was a mobile quarterback.
Yep.
He did it in the pocket. There's the old drill on the Madden when you're developing quarterbacks, right? Where you can go front, back, left, right, and then make the throws. It's teaching you how to move around in the pocket. That's where I'm seeing a lack of development from Drake May. And the very first play of the game was a perfect example. He's got a running back open in the flat, gets flushed out of the pocket a little bit, and runs on the very first play of the game. And it's like, okay, keep an eye on that the rest of the way. I just feel, there was the whole breakdown from Bill Belichick on McAfee's show before the draft. And the one thing that Bill cited was, we got to get him to calm down in the pocket now. And that's still where they're at with Drake May. They got to get him to calm down in the pocket still.
It's really interesting. And we're going to talk a lot about J.J. McCarthy. I know I'm going to. And Kevin O'Connell, sort of a quarterback developer, versus Josh McDaniels, who Brady developed his own. You can be sure in the offseason developing those skills. It's interesting you go there. So many ways to take this. I don't think he looked confident at all, even when he was sliding, which I liked him looking out for his well-being, but he just didn't have juice. He just didn't have confidence. I can't not talk about J.J. McCarthy. Kevin O'Connell talked about him being poised even early on in that game last night. For those of you that didn't see, the Vikings come back and beat the Bears, looking poised even early in that game. But gosh, man, Cody sent us a text about the Patriots not having enough dudes. I think there's something there. They clearly looked worse in the trenches on both sides of the ball. I mean, Milton Williams, Will Campbell, Drake May, those three names, bad day. And gosh, it really couldn't have been worse if you ask me. I do want to talk about all these quarterbacks because J.J. McCarthy made his first start of his NFL career last night. I do want to talk about these 6 quarterbacks. Anything else sort of on the Patriots as I move into a conversation on these 6 quarterbacks?
I thought I didn't hate the special teams performance. You got to be worried about the back end of the secondary a little bit. Go ahead.
And I will say, though, in terms of the special teams, Borregales, right? You missed the 40-yarder. And then shortly thereafter, the Raiders make a 40-yarder, and it wasn't a one-possession game at the end because that's an NFL kicker. I'm glad Vrabel went back to him on 4th and 2 and let him kick the 39-yarder. But all the little things add up. The Raiders weren't world beaters on Sunday.
No, not at all. Now, Geno Smith throwing for more than 350 on the Patriots again. He carved them up last year. He carved them up this year. Now, how much of that on the back end does everyone else get reset in their position once Gonzalez comes back? I mean, it wasn't, for me on the back end of the secondary, Jay, it wasn't, oh, they lost because they didn't have Gonzo there to shut someone down. If anything, they may have lost on the back end because with Gonzo out, everybody sort of moves up into a bit of a different role, and you've got to play things differently. Now, I know that, what was it? Hawkins was the one who blew it on that one touchdown where he needed to stay with him in coverage and kind of passed him off. But I know he turned around and he had the pick. So I just wonder what the back end will look like once Gonzo is slotted in there, because it puts everyone else where they should be.
They had moments, right? And even Milton Williams had moments where maybe he caused a lot of havoc and didn't get credit for the sack there. But what I will say, in moving away from this Belichick Mayo regime and rushing the passer more, not having that Vince Wilfork in the middle, but sort of rushing the passer more, but then not really getting pressure in spots where you're sending everyone, you got single coverage all around, and Geno Smith has all day to throw. So I'm equally concerned about the defense and the offense. My number one concern remains the quarterback, Drake May, and just so much. I just think it was a really shaky performance. I hope that Mike Vrabel can push the right buttons, because in a way, no matter how good I think Vrabel is for Drake May, I don't think he got him operating from that confident place.
No, I would agree. And I think they're trying to maybe figure out how much can the kid handle, how much can they put on him in this offense, how much freedom can they give him to get into the right play? Because that's the thing, right? Yeah. If you're going to give a quarterback freedom, and is he going to see ghosts, or is he going to see something that he doesn't, and then you check into the wrong play versus the right play? Because that was, again, one of the greatest luxuries of Tom Brady that I think we as fans will never really understand is his ability to be a maestro at the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
Right? I see what you're doing. Now I'm going to check to this. You're not going to catch us in that USOBs type thing.
Absolutely.
Well, and the kid's just not there yet. And that is understandable. Like, that's not an unfair critique. That is there is more of that to come, hopefully.
Yes, and we use the term kid loosely, but not loosely here with Drake May, who just turned 23. He looks like a kid, and what goes on in between the ears is just so important in this position. And what I will say, it was without question across the board consensus last season in this draft that it was, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, in whatever order, and Drake May 3. And I'm not sure anyone would have shaken that up, but it would have been fascinating if Mike Vrabel, I wonder if Kevin O'Connell was sitting in the top 5, or Sean Payton was sitting in the top 5, if they might have peaked at a guy like Bo Nix or JJ McCarthy. Bo Nix didn't have a great game yesterday, but gosh, he fits the part, and he is a lot older, a lot more experienced. But go ahead, I see you chomping.
Well, my critique of when they drafted May was that they were like, well, we're 3, so whichever guy falls to us will be okay. And that's what I didn't like, because then you're letting everyone else in front of you make the decisions. Not the Washington, not the Washington necessarily would have traded out. But Jay, to me, it felt like, well, we're going to get one of the top 3, so we'll just take whichever one we get and then we'll work with it, versus, to your point, which was teams making an evaluation and then going to get a player. You understand what I mean?
Yes, your point is well taken. But go ahead.
Go ahead. No, because I'm all wound up. So go ahead.
That's okay. I just think probably most teams, it was a very unique year. It was so consensus, right? Had they passed on Drake May for another quarterback, and the jury's still out on all these guys. Great graphic, Cody. The jury's still out. So Gresh, I just want to go here with this right now.
Yeah.
So you see the graphic, right? Caleb Williams went first overall. And I just want to talk about last week. Obviously, for some of these guys, they played last year more than others. So Caleb Williams, up and down night. He looked good early, right? 10 of his first 10. And, it seemed to me once that script was done and Brian Flores made some adjustments, Caleb Williams struggled. I do want to talk about that head coaching matchup. Last night's game had so much there. So Jaden Daniels went number 2. You know, if they redrafted today, he'd go number 1 without question, in my opinion.
100%.
Louis Riddick, among others, was bullish that he should have been number 1 all along. Drake May at number 3. We've talked about Drake, still to be determined for me, right? Michael Penix Jr. really had a great play yesterday. I like him. He's calm, he's poised, but coming out of college, I didn't like him. Jury's still out there. JJ fucking McCarthy. Like, it looked to me last night like he had a whole season of growth in one game, right? He has the pick 6, right? And then 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, the 2 passing, and then the rushing touchdown. And then Bo Nix, we talked about it, struggled, but he was picked 12th overall, but the leadership sort of is there. So when I look at all these guys, JJ McCarthy jumps off the page to me with, after 3 quarters last night, you would have thought one of the worst debuts you could imagine, flipping to the best. Talk to me about JJ a little bit.
Well, I think with J.J. McCarthy, I wasn't a massive fan of him necessarily coming out, but I give Kevin O'Connell credit. He called the right play at the right time for McCarthy. That rushing touchdown was well designed. There was only one wide receiver to that side blocking. They somehow cleared everybody else out to the left side, and McCarthy puts his head down and gets into the end zone. And that's a great play. So maybe there is a little more something there because of those guys that you have up there. Okay. Caleb Williams went through a coaching change. Yep. Jaden Daniels went to the playoffs. Drake May's now gone through a coaching change. McCarthy never got on the field, but looked pretty good last night.
Right. And was there for a year.
Bo Nix led his team to the playoffs last year, and Penix was a game short. So are we just going to pin Caleb and Drake's issues on the coaches, and now they've got better people in there, so now it's better time to evaluate them? Because listen, even though J.J. McCarthy sat around for a year, to me, Jay, he's still a rookie. It's like, Brady sat year 2000, but when he got in, he's still a rookie. And that's kind of the way I look at McCarthy. And you've got a couple of these guys who came in and made an impact right away and led a team to the playoffs. Now, we'll give Drake May and Caleb Williams some, little runway because of the coaching last year. And now you think they're getting proper coaching this year. Let's end up seeing what happens. But boy, when you look at Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels and the way they operate, and then you look at guys like Caleb Williams and Drake May, big difference of just the way they carry themselves, play the game, and the poise in the pocket.
Okay, a lot there to digest. I think you brought up a really good point when you broke down the 6 and the guys that have more experience, right? And had a better situation last year. And I include J.J. McCarthy. You look at Patrick Mahomes behind Alex Smith. You look at a lot of these guys. Sitting can benefit you, especially if you are just in the ear of Kevin O'Connell every waking moment of your life, being able to sort of take a step back. I don't think the moment was too big for him when he threw that pick 6. And I think J.J., so great stuff there. J.J. McCarthy, and I'm with you. I didn't necessarily love him as much coming out of college, but I don't watch enough college to really know, right? And we talk about what's going on, but he did win a national championship there, right? You think, and probably had some better coaching than Drake May did at North Carolina with Jim Harbaugh. It's funny, J.J. McCarthy was mentioned Kevin O'Connell being one of the best head coaches in the NFL, maybe the best, because he, obviously Jim Harbaugh was in the back of his mind too. But J.J. McCarthy, after that pick 6, I believe in the huddle, says to his lineman, like, where else would you guys rather be right now? I believe that was the quote in the huddle, which just blows my mind, right? Kevin O'Connell, like his energy and his leadership ability, gosh, find me a better coach in the NFL.
Well, it seems like he has the ability to connect with his guys, but he's also a really good play caller. Like that touchdown, that touchdown he set McCarthy up for was pretty amazing. And look, this guy called plays for Sam Darnold. I mean, trust me, Sam Darnold's going to go poof and back to the pumpkin this year out in Seattle. So maybe Kevin O'Connell is a guy who does and can work wonders. I was not big on that Minnesota team going into this year, in part because of the quarterback. I thought there'd be a little bit of a backslide with Minnesota, maybe to 9 wins or something like that. And that still might happen because that division is absolutely brutal. But that was a pretty good fourth quarter and maybe a breakthrough fourth quarter for head coach, play caller, and quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I was very bullish on JJ McCarthy going into the season because Kevin O'Connell was, just based on that. But it's interesting, after 1 week, that division, which we talk about, maybe one of the best in football, how good are the Bears and the Lions going to be, right? Week to week, right? Dan Campbell guaranteeing a win against the Bears next week. It's going to be a tough game for both teams.
Yeah, and I think for Dan Campbell, there's a lot on the line. I'm sure the people in Detroit, the people in Detroit are chirping. But here's the thing. We've been through this. We as Patriot fans have been through this. I've been talking on national radio for 2 weeks about how in 2005, Bill Belichick lost both Charlie Weiss and Romeo Crennel at the same time, and a little bit of coaching depth too. And that's exactly what happened to Detroit. Their D-line coach from last year is our defensive coordinator in New England. So they didn't lose one coordinator. In a way, they lost two, because Terrell Williams might have been the guy to get elevated, and instead he chooses to go with Vrabel. So yes. you think about that. Like, remember in 2005, we first started to hear the name Josh McDaniels. And then 3 years later, he gets hired as a head coach. But remember, they did the whole dance of, they didn't name him offensive coordinator, but they let him show he could call the plays. And then Bill came in and gave him the raise and all that stuff. We know what it's like. And what happens is a lot of it falls on the head coach and the quarterback. So Dan Campbell and Jared Goff have to really carry the load for Detroit this year.
Absolutely. It really is interesting what a difference a week makes. And I think the reason we love this league, look at the Sunday night game, Baltimore-Buffalo. We haven't even talked about that game. And then the game last night, this league is just unbelievable. And it really is tough to measure. A guy like Mike McDaniel, who I liked a lot. I don't know how well the season's going to go for the Dolphins. You said he was going to be the first coach fired. And Ben Johnson is very interesting. The juxtaposition between Ben Johnson and Kevin O'Connell. And I like Ben Johnson. He's young, right? Apparently he's been a real prick, but that's a good thing. But Laura Rutledge was interviewing him and he almost cut her off saying, defense has been great, blah, 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 right? It remind me of myself a little bit, being a little quick on the microphone. But juxtaposed to Kevin O'Connell, who just has that sort of, poise about him, right? And one example sort of at the end of the game is 2:02 left on the clock. I don't know if you were watching this game, right? But the end of the game last night, Minnesota's up 3. And Chicago kicks the ball off, right? And there's 2:02 left on the clock. And Kevin O'Connell has the return man take it out of the end zone so the 2-minute warning will pass it by. And the club, now if the ball gets kicked through the end zone, gets to the 35-yard line, I heard Mike Florio, Peyton Manning talking about, hey, Ben Johnson, you kick the ball out of bounds, you save that 2-minute timeout and the ball's at the 40. What's the difference in 5 yards? So even one, and I'm not judging Ben Johnson on one decision for 1 week, but there's a lot to learn when you're not just calling plays and you're responsible for the whole operation.
Yeah, no question. And I'll say this about Kevin O'Connell. You could tell that he was a quarterback at this level. You could see the way he thinks about the game. You could see the anticipation. I think there's knowing how to set people up. The whole, hey, when I went to this 3-wide set, they gave me this coverage. If I get it again, here's what we can run to be able to take advantage of it. Now, it does help that you do have Justin Jefferson, who's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. But I feel like Kevin O'Connell really does think the game like a quarterback and a backup quarterback would. Like when
100%.
when I talk to Zoe, when I talk to Zolak, it's different than talking to, say, Bledsoe, because Bledsoe's in the throw of the moment in the game, whereas with Zoe, he's standing on the sidelines thinking like a quarterback and a coach. And 100%. I think that's what Kevin O'Connell has.
Well, Frank Reich, who's a great football coach, regardless of how he's bounced around the NFL, but a lot of backup quarterbacks are great head coaches. And let's not sleep on Josh McCown, the quarterback's coach for Minnesota, who is ever present on the sideline there. You think about Drake May, you got Josh McDaniels, who else is in his ear, right? Besides Josh McDaniels in terms of that development when JJ McCarthy couldn't have a better situation.
I think, is Ben McAdoo still around? Let me see here. Is Ben McAdoo still lurking behind the scene? Oh, yeah. Benjamin Lee McAdoo, with his goofy mustache, is an American football coach who's currently serving as a senior defensive assistant for the New England Patriots.
All right.
How about that?
Fun.
So they flipped him around. So it looks like they flipped him around. He was a senior offensive assistant last year. So now it seems like old Ben McAdoo might be the guy breaking down the other team's offense for the Patriots defense, almost like advanced scouting in a way. And there's nothing wrong with that. Those dudes, you end up, most people don't realize you end up getting 3 to 4 weeks in a game plan of tendencies from a team, because there's just so much infrastructure at the NFL level. You can almost overload guys with information. I'll tell you one stat the Patriots better clean up. 28.6% on third down, started 3 of 4, but ended 1 for 10. That ish better get to 40% real quick, or else this team's going to be in quicksand.
It'll be really interesting to see the adjustments they make. And I don't know what the Miami Dolphins really do bring to the table, but it really will. Whichever team loses this game this week, it feels big.
It's
a
get right. It's a get right game for somebody.
So the NFL, bro, just a couple games, and you can take this wherever you want. Okay. Steelers 34, Jets 32. I mean, like I'm sitting there watching the Patriots, and I was like, oh, I wish this was last year when it's Jacoby Brissett and I don't have to watch the Patriots, because there's so many interesting games, right? So Steelers, Jet, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, why don't we do a little bit of what's the bigger story? Let me ask you, what is the bigger story? Aaron Rodgers' performance or the Jets being competitive in that game with the Steelers? I think it's Aaron Rodgers.
I think they're both stories. I think it was a great game.
I think it's the Aaron Rodgers performance, because ultimately the Jets ended up jetting, losing by 2. So even though they did look different, they ran for 187 yards. It was still ultimately the same result. People say Aaron Rodgers can't play. Go watch a game. That guy can play still. He may not be 35 touchdowns, 3 interception Aaron Rodgers from 2018, but he doesn't need to be. But in that game, they needed him to get them touchdowns, and he was able to do so. And Ramsey with the big hit there at the end of the game. But for me, a lot of people looked at, well, the Jets try hard and lose. Okay, that's to script. Aaron Rodgers turning back the clock with 4 touchdowns was not on anybody's bingo card when it came to that guy. And I'm a believer in him. I think the Steelers are going to be an 11 or a 12-win team. And the difference in a football team, when you have a QB you believe in, and that's what, it got a little hairy there in New York for me, Jay. And I think the Steelers took a big step forward in knowing that, hey, we can't rely on this guy to bail us out all the time. But boy, it's still in him for him to do so. And a lot of people discounted that going into this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody I talked to absolutely loved the Steelers. They were down 9 late, so I think that's a big thing to come out on the right result. And I absolutely love the Steelers, by the way, next week hosting Sam Darnold and the Seahawks coming in after not getting it done at home against the 49ers. I just like the Steelers in that spot. I think I saw the line move from 3 to 2.5. Yeah, I'm certainly bullish on what they can do. I'm going to be curious to see how Aaron Rodgers holds up. He did get banged up a little bit here and there, so it'll be interesting to see. But I think that defense is still going to be nasty, even though they maybe didn't have their best week 1. Justin Fields, even though you don't like him, can present a unique challenge.
Let me hit you with what's the bigger story? What is the bigger story? Josh Allen saving the Bills or Baltimore blowing yet another fourth quarter lead?
I think it's Baltimore. They lost to Buffalo in the postseason last year. The result of that game really could matter down the stretch. But early in the season last year, there was a different result. The Ravens blew Buffalo out early in the season. Buffalo still ended up righting the ship. A lot of people thought Buffalo was going to lose week 1 and then win 10 straight. I will say, for those of us that had Ravens action, gosh, it was about the only bet I lost all weekend, Gresh, and it was Ravens, right? So that one stung a little bit, felt pretty good about that. But no, I think it's the Ravens blowing that lead, and sort of you see certain teams with opportunities to be aggressive, sometimes maybe not being aggressive, despite thinking that their head coach may be in that spot.
Yeah, at 40 to 25, all they had to do is just get, and even at 40 to 33, all they have to do is just get a set of downs and they win the game. And Baltimore, with the greatest running quarterback in the history of the NFL, a power back, they still can't find a way to get 11 yards in a big spot when they need to. To your point on Buffalo, right? You ready for this? Buffalo started with the Ravens. Here are their next 5 games: at the Jets, home for the Dolphins, home for the Saints, home for the Patriots, at Atlanta, then bye week, then at Carolina, then the big matchup against the Chiefs in early November. Bills are going to be undefeated going into that Chiefs game. Unless something crazy happens, the Bills should beat the hell out of every one of those teams on the schedule, even New England included.
Yeah.
I mean, that is, so they could arguably be undefeated going into Kansas City. Now, Jay, in week 4, Kansas City hosts Baltimore, and Kansas City plays the Eagles this week.
Right.
So on November 2nd, we might be able to say that the Bills have already sewn up the number 1 seed because they beat Baltimore, and I think they'll be undefeated. They always beat Kansas City during the regular season. So if you assume that, there's a chance that the Bills go on a run where maybe they only lose 2 games this year.
I couldn't agree more with any of that. With all that, I want to ask you a couple questions. So first thing quickly, right? Commanders 21, Giants 6. Almost everyone I talked to absolutely loved the Giants in that spot, whether it's plus the point. I think it was a consensus play in the circa million plus the points. What I'll tell you is that when the schedule first came out, that was the game where I thought all my survivor entries were going to be on the Commanders. And then none of my entries were on the Commanders. Typically, I like to be able to tune out noise, but I don't think I did on that game. So I just am curious if you had any action on that game or any thoughts prior, because I sort of took the bait on the Giants plus the points there. And
I had a 5-legger, and Washington was squarely in it. I have no faith in the Giants. The Commanders, I was a little wonky on, I admit, in part because, Jay, they won 12 last year. I think they slide back to a 10-win team, which is perfectly acceptable. And they should still make
feel that way.
I do. Yesterday? Oh, yeah. Because the Giants were factored in as 2 of those 10 for me at the beginning of the year. But no, I was on the Commanders. I thought they played well. The Giants, it's interesting. Cody Bone Marrow put in the in our little text string, Patriots don't have any dudes. I don't know the Giants. I mean, I know they have Malik Neighbors, and I know they just drafted Abdul Carter, but how many dudes do they have? It doesn't look like they have very many.
Yeah, they need some more dudes on the offensive line, right? You think Daniel Jones is happy to be the F out of there? When I'm sitting down for an NFL Sunday, right? And I'm not saying I made a ton of money when I say the only bet I lost was the Ravens, right? But I got all sorts of action, right? Whether it's survivor pools, all sorts of stuff going on. So I'm just curious it's different for me every Sunday, right? So for you, like next Sunday, I might be in Vegas. For you, what is it like for you on a typical Sunday? Patriots, the whole league, gambling?
Well, I start by watching myself on television at 11:30 on the CBS station in Providence for the show
pre-recorded.
That we do in New England. Yeah, we normally knock that out on a Friday, and then they air it on Sunday, and then I do live on Sunday night. For me, usually the action is locked by Sunday morning. Unless there is an injury situation or a team that I do want to bet on, but I need to wait to see inactives or something like that. I will say that the networks are getting much better at 11:30, making sure they're dropping the inactives on TV. Like, it's like, okay, let's go to Schefter to find out who's got a twisted nut and can't play today. And they go to him, and then, and then I can maybe make a final decision on something. But Jay, normally for both UFC and NFL, it's rare that there is jumping on something day of. Normally, I've thought about it. I've already broken it down. And especially in the NFL, I try to lock in as early as possible because there are the original lines, the way early look aheads. Then there's the early look aheads. Then there's what does it look like week of the game. And following some of those numbers can also lead you to the trail of prosperity if you are following that, if you're following that deeply.
So I just want to quickly, I'm not intending to talk about the Survivor contest the whole show, but it should have been an absolute bloodbath in Circa Survivor, and it wasn't at all. Just a couple games I just want to mention to you, right? Cardinals Saints, right? A lot of people on the Cardinals, right? It was not out of the question, right? Bengals Browns. Don't even get me started. I'm embarrassed to say I had one entry on the Bengals. Is my mic muted? I'm embarrassed to say it. Luckiest get through Survivor of my life. I don't even want to start talking about the Bengals, right? Super lucky, right? Titans gave the Broncos fits. That was the consensus #1 pick, right? So I thought it was really interesting how none of the almosts, right, that happened, if you will, right? None of those big favorites. I bet a lot of people with these, I bet the books got crushed a little bit. These square ass money line parlays came through this weekend.
Well, they did. And I'll tell you what, Jay, when you think about the Denver game, that game ended 20-12. The number, right, I do believe, closed at 8.5. Steelers and the Jets, 2-point game. It was Steelers minus 2.5.
Right.
It's amazing how uncanny it is that sometimes it's just right on the number, and that hook is an absolute killer. How about people opening week or the opening of the season? I was all over Eagles minus 7.5 against the Cowboys, and then that was wonky because of rain and the weather delay and stuff. So you as a gambler, you can at least talk yourself out of that one. What you can't talk yourself out of is whiffing on the Chiefs.
Well, and I just can't believe I forgot to mention Eagles Cowboys. Cowboys should have won that game going away. That was another one of my Survivor entries. Like, how many opportunities is Dallas Cowboys going to have in that football game? If I'm a Cowboys fan, it's unbelievable how some of these games just flip. I want to move to week 2 quickly, if I can. So I'm just going to ask you about the 2 AFC East games real quick. Jets, Bills, right? Bills minus 6.5. Like, don't you think the Bills ride that momentum and go into New York and find New Jersey?
They hammer them. Yep.
Right.
They hammer them. Yeah, that's a 10 or more point win for the Bills, in my opinion.
Well, and I bring it up in the context because I'm looking to solicit information from my guy Gresh for the Survivor contest, because I think the Bills, I may want to use them later, but I think perhaps the Bills might make some sense there. All right, Patriots, Dolphins. I mean, do you have a coin? I'm excited to watch.
I don't need a coin for as much as I took the cheese on the Patriots last week, thinking that they're not losing at home. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to take the cheese again on New England. The Dolphins are god awful. They don't respect their coach. They don't play hard. They're not physical. I think for the Patriots, just don't screw it up. Go in and beat them up. This is kicking someone's ass in the schoolyard, and they're feckless and they can do nothing. Miami, to me, Jay, really is that soft. And in a battle of wits against Mike Vrabel, to me, Mike McDaniel comes unarmed.
Christian Gonzalez like to think walking through that door, or tough to tell at this point?
I think my guess is he's back this week. That's my guess.
So as we look at week 2, and Cody, if you could just go to the top of the board, Gresh, I just sort of want to go through these games, and sometimes I like to look at the board and see if anything sticks out just in a very quick fashion. I mean, Commanders, Packers, 3.5. Any initial reaction?
I feel like that's heavy on the Packers. I would take Washington and the points there. But in terms of a Survivor, it's a stay away. That can go either way. Yeah,
I agree. Bills was 6.5. Now it's 7. We both really.
Oh, that number's going to go up. That'll be 8.5. I would say by game time. I have no reason to believe that the Jets are going to rise up and even really challenge the Bills very much.
Brian Dable says that Russell Wilson is starting again. Gosh, man, some of these guys fall off a cliff. I mean, I know that he throws the best deep ball of all time, but I liked a lot of what I saw out of Dallas. I'd probably lean Dallas minus 6. Your thoughts if forced to pick against the spread?
Yeah, if forced to pick, Code, slide that up there for me if you would, please.
Yep.
Is that Dallas minus 6?
Yep.
Ugh, man.
I know.
That feels like a lot of points. I don't think the Giants can beat the Cowboys.
I agree.
I mean, but the Cowboys could self-implode, but good grief. If I'm that's a no bet for me at Cowboys -6. I wish I had a better feel. You're giving me the Patriots, who I think are going to win outright, and you're giving me points. It feels like I'm stealing, or it feels like I'm getting hoodwinked.
Yep. So I'm not trying to talk about the Survivor contest, but like the Ravens ain't going 0-2, losing to the Browns. I really like. I've had them locked in a week 2, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I like them to win by 11 points, but yeah.
I don't like them to win by 11, but I'm with you. If you're thinking Survivor, the Ravens are real solid this week. However, it is eliminating them early in the season.
Good point. Brock Purdy may or may not play. Your thoughts both ways, I guess, on that game?
Oh my God. When McCorkle throws for 3 and 300 yards, I'm going to shove it up so many asses. Oh, I can't wait.
I'll fly up there. I'll fly up there. Mac Jones versus Spencer Rattler.
That's a real sentence and might happen in a real NFL game this year.
And they just open the doors and say, anybody who wants to come in, sit wherever you want, right?
If you're in New Orleans, you are actively trying to get Arch Manning 100%. No question about it.
So interestingly enough, that game would be very interesting if Mac Jones plays, but just yikes. I know Kyle Shanahan liked him coming out of the draft. I wish you all the best.
That right on the screen there might be your Survivor pick this week. Rams over the Titans.
Gosh, it's that Titans defense had some moments, you can be sure. And I think Cam Ward, I hear you. I considered it. You can be sure.
For just Survivor, you just got to pick a winner. To me, the Rams feel pretty good there. I know that you like the Steelers this week over the Seahawks, huh? You do?
Keep in mind it's Tuesday morning, and I just love talking about this stuff more than anything in the world. So I love the Steelers because, to me, what's really key for myself in terms of handicapping this league is looking at what a team did the previous week and seeing how if it's an emotional letdown or what, right? Like the Dolphins, I think very well may implode, right? But I believe the Steelers could have lost easily, got that win. I think they carry the momentum and handle Sam Darnold at home to go 2-0. So to me, yes, as of this moment, I love. Yeah,
you can definitely talk me into that. And then you got Jags Bengals. I texted my guy Liam Cohen after the win. I got a TX bro. So, all right, I'll take it. He's he at least acknowledged the text, Gresh. But good for Jacksonville to get the win. Now, so theory. I didn't look at the snap counts yet. There's a little website that us media people get to go to where we can check out the snap counts of each game, and I wonder if Travis Hunter ends up getting more snaps on defense because they're playing the Bengals this week.
Great point. That's such an interesting question. Certainly, he played far more on offense than on defense. That's a really interesting angle there. Gosh,
do you lean him heavy on the other side? So I just brought up the old playtime percentage here, and let me see. You go past the O-line, you go past the quarterbacks, because the O-line and quarterbacks always play. Brian Thomas got 57 snaps.
Other than
Hunter got 42 snaps on offense and only 6 on defense.
Right. So to me, I would think that probably because he's a rookie and young, they may stick with that formula a little bit. But, Liam Cohen, we can joke all we want about Duval, right? But even though you thought he may be a little bit young, I think we both felt like potentially could be a good hire. He has this a confidence and a moxie about him. I think he's sort of got it. I said it at the time. I know you'll be rooting for him, but it's exciting. I kind of like the Jags money line.
Well, I also think that for week 1, Liam got a real favorable matchup going against Carolina because they don't know what they're doing down there.
And they're all banged up.
Well, and it's another, I'm an owner that's taking control. Let me go hire the latest offensive whatnot. Liam took over for the guy who is the head coach in Carolina. But hey, they wear tight pants and they huffed a fart of Sean McVay in an elevator once. So they're all offensive geniuses according to the internet and the way people react to the modern NFL.
I'm going to talk to Betsy and get you some, like, I wouldn't even wear these, but you remember like 10 years ago, like guys were rocking capri pants where they're like, come halfway
Mike McDaniel wore those once at a game. I'm dead ass.
See, we haven't talked to Betsy. We may get you a pair of those.
My issue is you can't get those for me. And I'll tell you why. My calves are too big. I'm serious now. They don't make those for people with normal calves. And my calves are, I have to be very mindful of what jeans I buy because they'll look good down to the knee. And then it's like they're painted on my calves. And I've got to be, I can't get like slim fit or something like that. I always get, it's not husky. Don't get me wrong now, but it's, it's like, I think that it's not bell bottom, but it's like wide mouth bottom or something like that, which they really should change for people with enormous calves.
I love the wide mouth bottom jeans. That's hilarious. I love it. All right, moving forward. So wait, Bengals Jags, if forced to pick against the spread quickly, any lean?
Against the spread, I'd lay the points and go Cincinnati.
I like that in my brain for me to see both sides of it. Bears Lions, man, this game is so fascinating to me now that they're both 0-1, and the Bears certainly had an opportunity to win that game last night.
Yeah, I think I'd go Bears plus 6.5. That's a big number.
5.5.
5.5.
You like 5.5?
All of the pressure is on Detroit.
Yes.
This is a if Chicago goes in and loses, they're supposed to. If Detroit loses to the former coordinator and the number one pick, oh boy. Folks in Motown won't be happy.
I agree. So did you watch the game last night? Like, were you locked into that Monday night game? So I'm just curious, what did you think of Ben Johnson's sort of demeanor and overall? I'm just curious.
I felt like he's trying too hard. That's what it came across to me. Like, not trying to be something that you're not, but trying to show another part of your personality, so to speak. Like, a lot of people always point to all the Belichick assistants try to go in and do it like him. Not necessarily, but there are flaws. And, is this Ben Johnson trying to go in and do it like Dan Campbell? Or does this guy have enough confidence in himself and enough feel in his ability to be the head coach that he wants to be and really believe it? Like, I've listened to Liam Cohen. I've listened to Liam talk about this, right? So he's been around a bunch of different head coaches. His dad was a college head coach, Big Tim down at Salve for a period of time. Liam's grandfather was a head coach along the way back in the 50s and the 60s. So I think there's a lot of confidence of this is who I am, and if I fail, I fail kind of confidence. Whereas there's some guys who I think go in and try to put on a little bit of a show. And that's where I think Johnson is at right now. Unfortunately, he's trying to put on a little bit of a show, or he's trying to show a different part of his personality early on to his football team. Because I do subscribe to the theory of be a prick early. You can always ease up as they gain your trust or move along. But if you don't win enough games, then how do you do that if you're a head coach who's putting up a front?
Great stuff there. And it's really interesting because if Ben Johnson isn't a prick at his core, don't be a prick, right? Like Liam Cohen. Right. I made a point to you on on our third episode when he became the head coach. I saw some interactions between him and the players, and I'm like, oh, I can just tell he knows how to talk to everyone individually and just rub them the right way. I love it. That was a great comparison. So, all right, Cody, were there any more games that we didn't pick there on the board? I want to ask Gresh one more question before we talk about the Red Sox reluctantly. Gresh, you got a heart out today?
No.
Good.
No, but I'm good to go.
Good.
Broncos minus 2.5.
Cardinals first, right above it.
Oh, Panthers Cardinals. Ugh.
Yep.
Oh, God.
Cardinals will be a consideration of mine in Survivor because I didn't use them last week. Your thoughts there? There, I like it. See that? You said enough.
That Carolina-Arizona game feels like a complete stay away on every level.
I like it.
It just feels like a real. Now, what I was going to say is Denver minus 2.5 feels light. I mean, the Colts beat a really, really bad team. And I know the Colts are at home, but yikes.
And the Broncos barely beat a pretty bad team, too.
Yeah, I think the Broncos will bounce hard, and I think the Colts will also bounce hard, as in down and splat. So, and that Eagles-Chiefs game, I don't even bring it up to me. I don't want anything to do. I don't want any, no, but I'm just saying I don't want anything to do with Eagles Chiefs in any way, shape, or form from a gambling standpoint.
Me neither. But just on that Broncos game, I think it's interesting, right? Because sometimes early in the week, right? Like you just kind of sold me a little bit. And you know what I mean? Just, not that I had even thought about this game, but I agree with that, right? As I look for different spots, especially early in the week, seeing that 2.5 number, I lean with you there. Yeah, Eagles Chiefs. Yeah, we can even move on. Can't wait to watch. It feels like Bills Ravens last week, but I was bullish on the Ravens, if I'm being honest, last week. But yeah, I would lean Eagles because the Chiefs scare me a little bit. And I think the Eagles bounce back from a kind of lackluster performance. Hard not to talk about that game for me. Falcons Vikings.
Yuck. I guess Vikings because I don't have a lot of faith in the Falcons, but then again, it was an exciting win and they pulled it out. 4.5. Yuck. I mean, if you 27, you could see 27-23 being a final score. And if you're on the Minnesota side, you kind of lose with the hook. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly what I'm getting from Atlanta week to week. I'm telling you, by week 9, old man Arthur Blank's gonna be sitting on that yacht saying, that he wish he hired Belichick. What do you make of the Monday night matchup there, Jay, of Tampa and Houston? Houston did not exactly grace themselves in glory against. We got 2 Monday nighters this week. Okay, I was like, wait a minute, did I jump the gun and thinking that was the Sunday nighter? No, but there's 2 Monday nighters this week. Interesting that Vegas will be at home against a Chargers team where, man, I don't know. Jay, I feel like the Chargers and Denver, I feel like I'm getting a bargain on both those teams because the teams they're playing ended up winning their openers. So now maybe the number is inflated on the bottom of both of those squads.
I just wrote that down. I totally agree with that. I lean Chargers. Bucks Texans is not a game I'm going to pay too much attention to from a gambling standpoint.
I think I might lock in Chargers Broncos now and consider a tease.
Hey, I will say Buccaneers Texans feels like an over game to me. I feel like we're going to see a lot of points there. So that 42.5, is of interest.
I can sign up. I could totally sign up for that.
So Gresh, I intentionally, I didn't mind taking an hour on the National Football League, a little boxing up front, but we can very quickly touch on the Red Sox and Belichick before we get out of here. Yeah, exactly. It feels like without Roman Anthony, the ceiling just doesn't exist in my brain. I understand maybe back for the postseason. Certainly they have a good chance to still make the playoffs. They're like 3 games back in the division, but without that piece, I hate to say it. It doesn't feel like losing your quarterback, but it feels like losing your second most important piece,
Yeah. It would be, you didn't lose Brady, you lost Edelman, right? Like one of those sort of deals.
That's a pretty good
example. Where you're still finding ways to win, but they
want a Super Bowl without Gronk. Cody, they want a Super Bowl without Gronk. Sorry, go ahead.
Here we go. I would say this. The math lines up really good for the Red Sox. The math and the schedule. Because right now, the pitching staff is on fumes. They don't have Anthony. I'm not saying they're sucking hind teeth, but they're pretty close to it. They were teetering, and the A's are exactly what the doctor ordered, right? Be on the road, go to Sacramento, go win a couple of games against the A's, and then ultimately get the hell out of there. So just from the math standpoint, as you see there, the Red Sox are 80-65. They have 5 games left against the A's. They have 3 each with the Yankees, Rays, Blue Jays, and Detroit. Could end up with 92 wins, most likely to end up at 80, in my opinion. Go 4-1 against the A's, go 6-6 against the rest, and you're at 90. So beat up on the hapless A's, which they should do, and then you can kind of coast the rest of the way, end up at 90 wins, and then you're playing in the wild card round. So I think that would term it a success in the minds of the Red Sox, a lot of fans, but it wouldn't satiate people because it would then strengthen ownership to continue to do things the way they have been.
I know Aroldis Chapman has been amazing, but Garrett Crochet, I know he may fall just shy of winning the Cy Young, but that guy in a postseason rotation, gosh, it's like if he toes the rubber in game 1, you feel like you're going to have a minus by his name, perhaps, unless it's at Yankee Stadium again, Max Fried or whatever, right? So it's like you do feel like he does give you a chance. So
are you okay with because we got the news this week that Bregman is opting out? Are you okay on that?
So
I know you were
I've
big
been talking about it all year.
I know you have been.
I really, really hope he stays, and I don't care how much it costs, but I think it was a no-brainer. I think as soon as he got injured, that was the time to say, hey, Alex, let's just firm this up a little bit. We'll give you an extra 5 or 10 a year, and extend it 1 more year. I just, because he really was having a good year, struggled a little bit, recently, but there wasn't a huge market with him in the offseason, and you do see this sport make a little bit of a transition in terms of the dollars. I'm not sure Juan Soto's dollars is people are going to keep chasing that. So I think, potentially, I think the Red Sox could still be the highest bidder there, but gosh, I feel like that piece, to win the Alex Bregman sweepstakes for a 2nd straight year feels tough,
Oh, I agree. I think he's gone. I don't think I don't think the agent does this without at least understanding or thinking that there's going to be a destination in mind. And look, shame on the Red Sox for not just, inking the guy in the beginning, right? When they did this deal, it was nice and flashy. And then when you looked under the hood and you saw, oh, shit, he could opt out of this every year if he wanted to. And if you're the agent, look at it this way. Oh, you guys had great success with my guy here. Now you should really lock in and pay him the hard number, in which the Red Sox are going to go, thank you for your 1 year of service. We're just going to let you go and figure it out another way. But that was a little bit of a kick in the balls this week, hearing that Bregman is, he didn't fall in love with, as Steve Buckley is famous for saying, the Boston baseball experience.
I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that that's the case, even though he may not come back.
It'll be interesting. Let's put it that way. Well, because you know what? I don't think the organization's going to step up. That's the sad part.
And I think you're probably right. But you also might know something about how happy Bregman is that you won't bring to the air.
I think it's all about the dollars. And I think there is a belief from people that I've talked to that the Red Sox, they're not
Just
about those dollars for that particular player, which really stinks. So you know what that means? It's left up to the current management structure to sort of figure out how they're going to address that situation. I think they're just going to shove all in on as many young guys as they possibly can and let them grow. Because you know what this year did, Jay? Sadly, it gave management a mulligan year. So that if they push in on all these young guys, hey, we made the playoffs. Look at what we did. Da, da, da. And then you kick some, high-priced players out the door, and you go in with all the young guys, and then say you win 83 games next year or something like that, then it's, well, look at what we did with all these youngs and the experience, and we made it last year, and blah, 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 and all the typical just sort of horse crap they try to shovel on your shoes up there. Luckily, they have Alex Cora to help them get to the end of the year, because he's got to find a gas can on the side of the road to gas these guys up again to be able to get them to the postseason. Red Sox are plus 350 to go to the ALCS. As one said on WEEI when I was there, there's a better chance they'll go to the ALC ass at a strip club than go to the ALCS this year.
It's hilarious. So, I understand that Bill Belichick has banned the Patriots scouts from North Carolina's facility. Apparently, he's been banned. I mean, I guess as I sit here on Tuesday morning, I think everybody just need focus on football. Like, who cares? He's going to get a statue next to Tom Brady. What was it that he didn't in his book? He didn't acknowledge Kraft at all. Is that perhaps why he's not as welcome in New England as he should be?
Well, a couple of things, and we didn't mention this. This was the Raiders-Patriots game was the first game where the opposing owner had a statue at the visiting teams or at the team stadium. Think of that. It's pretty crazy.
As he's broadcasting another game.
Right. As he's doing a game in New Orleans or whatever the hell it was.
Right.
You are going to hear this nowhere else, folks, when it comes to Belichick breakdown. You know why? You know why this is going on? Because all the checks have cleared. Think about this, Jay. What did we hear at the breakup press conference? Well, I just wanted to let everyone know that we are amicably parting ways, which was such a load of horse crap to begin with. But now what this tells me is the money is already counted. Whatever they owed Belichick, he got his check. And now he's going to let it fly because we know it wasn't amicable. I think Robert Kraft, you know what it is? Old people fool themselves. They do. I manage olds. They fool themselves into thinking that certain things are okay or that this is going to work out. And they're, but at the end of the day, Robert Kraft was trying to fool himself into thinking that everyone was okay that he made this decision. And we knew that Bill wasn't, right? So however long that structure was for him to get the money, because look, I'll say it, I've been there too. When you get fired in contracts, there's either they owe you all the money or they owe you a portion of the money. And what these companies try to do is they get you to sign these like non-disclosures. Hey, you're not going to go tell everyone that we're a bag of dicks, which we really are, or we'll come sue you for that money. Well, that's where Bill is like, oh, yeah, fine. You paid me $30 million to walk out the door. The check's already cleared. I got plenty of dough. I'm going to say what I want. To hell with you, old man Kraft. And it's almost like, okay, or do you want to go back and forth with Belichick, or do you just let this thing die? But, Jay, to me, this screams the last Kraft check has cleared the Belichick account, and now we're going to start to hear it from the other side.
Absolutely. Can you imagine how interesting it would be if Belichick was coaching an NFL team? This North Carolina thing is not interesting me nearly as much as I thought it would. Well,
I think the opener didn't help, and then they played Charlotte after that, which they were 1AA like 8 years ago. Forgot, like I was going down there doing games, for crying out loud. So I hear you. I think he's back next year. I really do.
I mentioned that. I really hope so. Go ahead.
Who is the I'm blanking on the name of the Dolphins owner. You live down there, so
oh yeah, I'm blanking on it too.
Old man
Stephen Ross.
Thank you.
But yeah, Cody got it too.
Let's remember, and thank Cody. Stephen Ross. Let's remember, Jay, when Tom Brady was becoming a free agent, and they had Brian Flores there. Remember, Stephen Ross was like, yo, you need to go talk to Brady at some party. And he was like, no, I'm not doing it. So Stephen Ross, I think, has been not enamored, but definitely respects the Patriots and what they did. Who went after their coaches before, tried to tamper to get Tom Brady. If Belichick is just sitting out there, and yeah, there you go. August 2nd, 2022. Great job by Cody. NFL stripped Stephen Ross of 2023 first-round pick for tampering with Brady and Peyton. So now, no tampering, no one to have to F with. All you're doing is going to, North Carolina and going to grab the guy. I would absolutely not relate. And if you're Miami, what's, I know you got a roster, but I mean, you keeping that general manager, you keeping anybody in that building with the football operation. If you're Stephen Ross and you hit rock bottom, you could do a hell of a lot worse than bringing in Bill.
And you can be sure Belichick would love nothing more than to re-enter the league in the American Football Conference East.
Yes.
With the Patriots,
Oh, the spite and malice. Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, get us out of here. We got a coach is fired. Yeah. Hey, hopefully it's Mike McDaniel, because that'll probably mean the Patriots find a way to win, but I don't know, man.
Yeah,
shaky May.
Give it a couple of weeks and McDaniel will be gone. All right, folks, there's your full-throated, long edition of Gas as we've gone over. We've broken the rules. We've had to ask WWE or Tony Khan at AEW to go over the time limit, which we have. It's forget the hour-long time limit like in the old WWF. But make sure you check out Jay on PGF. And if you're watching the Canelo fight, you might see Jay just kind of roaming around, I'm sure, like I do for UFC events. I'll see him roaming around or sitting beside like Theo Vaughn or beside, Joe Benavidez or something like that, where there's a lot of listening going on. Jay's a great listener whenever he's sitting there around those people. That's it for this edition of Gas. We'll see you next week, folks.